Hey, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Will Marotti Show. Will Marotti, your common sense evangelist, your host, and you, our beloved audience. Wow. I had a surprising email and a really great bit of news to share. I'll tell you about in a minute. Last night, but right now I want to pray, and I want to pray for the people in Berlin. I got I might have been from Tracy. Somebody sent me a graphic last night and said, right now, or here I'm in Berlin, and it looked to me like a volcano. And I'm like, I don't think there's any volcanoes in Berlin. What? Well, anyway, apparently there's forest fires that started up on a hill and now are raging in Berlin. So let us pray for the folks in Berlin. There be no injuries, no deaths, and no loss of property, and they get the fire extinguished quickly. We really need that. So let's just open the show in prayer right now, and then we'll dig in. Heavenly Father, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we thank you for another day of life. We thank you for another day to enjoy the abundant blessings that you're so kind to share with us. Your grace, your mercy, your love, your patience, most importantly, your forgiveness. We're grateful for that, Lord. Thank you that we live in a free country, and but we need your help. We need your help, and so we pray that we'd get the right leader on election day. We pray that our country would go back to some of its founding principles, and that we would be a strong country and a prosperous country and a country that's safe for everybody. And so we need your help with that. And we thank you, Lord, for all the men and women in our military. We pray you bless them as they serve today. Keep them from harm's way. Comfort their families as they're separated. Thank you for our veterans who've already so bravely served. Bless them, bless their families. All of our first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, those working in Border Patrol, ICE, help them, keep them safe today, comfort their families. And thank you for this wonderful audience, faithful, engaged, expanding. Bless them. Those that are needing comfort from the loss of loved ones, please give that to them. Those that are ill, give them healing. Those that are struggling in relationships or disruption in relationships, we pray for reconciliation and peace. And anyone struggling financially, we pray for resource for them. And help us today. Help us to honor you with this show. Help me not say anything stupid. Thank you for AT, LJ, GG, DA, all the folks that help make this work well. And we give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. So, we're going to have George Colli on in just a few minutes. I got some news stories to cover, but I got an alert, an email yesterday, and it was a media alert and sent out Boston Globe. And there's some personalities that are available to talk about what I talked about last week. Remember the Ortiz walk-off, Yankees beat the Yankees in the American League Championship. Well, anyway, we are going to have at 9:35. We are so honored to have Boston Globe sports columnist and associate editor Dan Shaughnessy will be our guest, and we're going to talk about breaking the curse of the Bambino, and Red Sox history and lore. And I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. I'm almost as excited. I'm maybe more excited. I don't know. I can't compare it, so I won't. But George Colli first at 9:15. This is a story that just came across my desk this morning that I'm happy to see. You know, I've been a longtime proponent of school resource officers. Schools, churches, they're soft targets, and we see, cowards going in with guns and killing teachers and students. And of course, here in Connecticut, we always think of what happened at Sandy Hook and the devastation and just horrible tragedy there. Well, in some communities, and I'm talking about Enfield, they have now made official the use of school security officers. And they're talking about one here, Officer Jeremiah Dowd, who retired from the Granby Police Department after 20 years, is one of the armed school security guards that cover Enfield Public School. And it was a program that was restarted this fall. And I think it's a great idea. You know, the digs against police or armed officers in schools, it scares kids. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I can tell you for when our son Will was in school, he had two school resource officers, and I would pick him up every day after school, and I'd go in and wait inside the school. And can I tell you, those guys were like the kids' best friends. All the kids loved them. It is stupid. The kids are afraid. No, they're not. The parents are bothered by it for whatever reason. But it's the best way, I think, to protect our students. And so I want to say hats off to Enfield and also in Derby. Superintendent Matt Conway has added a peace of mind to parents by having armed resource officers. East Hampton has had a rash lately of threats that has resulted in lockdowns at 4 different schools last month or earlier this month. So I just feel like this is the best way, whether they're SROs or retired police officers or retired military, particularly those who served in military police. I just feel like this is the best way to keep our kids safe and our schools safe. And so I applaud Enfield for incorporating these school security officers. And because the Harris-Biden economy is so strong, report this morning from Michigan, Stellantis, who is the parent company of Chrysler Dodge, laying off 1,100 workers at its Warren truck assembly plant following the end of production of the Ram 1500 Classic pickup. Layoffs start October 12th, part of the automaker's broader cost-cutting efforts. The Warren plant will continue to produce Jeep Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer models, but the decision to discontinue the Ram, I don't know why. I mean, that was the most popular Dodge truck probably in history, the Ram 1500. I don't know why you'd cut that out, but anyway. But Stellantis said it might cut up to 2,400 jobs. So actually, these layoffs are less than what they're projecting. Wow. That's because the economy is so strong here. As Biden economy is so good. This is from Ed Morrissey, hotair.com. This is, excuse me. Got up this morning, let the dogs out, let the beagles, and there was a heavy kind of an odor of smoke in the air. Now, we live next to a farm, and so, we deal with interesting odors all year round at different times, whether it be their cows or this family has a lot of campfires, and so so I didn't think anything of it. And then I got here to the office. I'm like, wait a minute, the studio. I'm like, wait a minute, this is really heavy. And then I remember this graphic, right? Somebody sent last night, and I said, this looks like a volcano, but this is just, I don't know how bad it is. I don't know how widespread it is. But my goodness, forest fires in Berlin. I mean, I know we get them once in a while here in Connecticut, and it's been so hot lately, and things have been dried out. Gonna hit, I think, 79 today. Wow, I mean, praise God. I I love it. Summer in October, yeah, baby. Crazy though, and so I'm a little congested from the smoke inhalation. AT has a little bit of a breathing problem as well. I think LJ is fine, and DA and Gigi, but anyway, so we might struggle a little bit vocally here today. The old phrase, buyer's remorse. You buy something, and for whatever reason, you didn't really think it through. You didn't weigh out all the pros and cons, and then you're with it, and oh man, I don't like this at all. This is not what I wanted. Well, apparently there's a growing number of Democrats. This is from a new poll, TIPP. We talk about tip polls a lot. Over a third of Democrats have lost their joy over the Harris candidacy. And 58% strongly agree, or 41% agree somewhat that she was not the best candidate. Yep. And, it's so funny when you think about the whole thing. It's so odd. She was the lowest rated, least like vice president in history a mere 4 months ago. And then she became the darling of the left and the darling of the media. And once she finally got out of the basement and started campaigning and speaking, and sharing her knowledge. It became very very apparent that she was not capable of the job. She was not up for the position. And then you add that together with the soft coup of pushing out Joe Biden and sliding in Harris with no real direction from voters. People are feeling this buyer's remorse. And Hillary pollster Mark Penn, who you've seen on news a lot over the years, cites Harris' lack of positive argument for her leadership and her ties to the Biden administration to explain why she's losing the edge to Trump late in the cycle. Voters simply trust Trump more to deliver real change. The reason Trump has a slight edge is straightforward. He dominates the core issues that people care about. I don't understand, again, polls, you can't believe polls because the polls had Trump so far behind Hillary Clinton in 2016. It was like impossible. People were talking about, the reverse Mondale-Reagan situation where would Trump even win a state, they were talking about, if you recall back then. So Trump's ahead in every battleground state right now, according to Real Clear Politics, and not only Real Clear Politics, others as well. And you got to wonder if he's got that kind of an edge, how is it even close? But so we're being told it is. But Penn argues that Harris could still win through personal favorability, which has improved in the recent Harvard-Harris polling from 38 to 49%. Trump is still underwater, always has been in terms of favorability. But everybody thinks Trump's better on the economy. Everybody thinks Trump's better on inflation. Everybody thinks Trump's better on Israel, on war. I don't know. Other than I think Harris beats Trump on climate change. That's it. So we're 2 weeks. I think we're 2 weeks out. Remember now, we're gonna have a live audience. We're gonna do a show. We're gonna have a live audience and election night show, and you can be in the audience, but you have to. It's going to be a random selection. You have to email me. You have to say you want to be in the audience, and you email me at willmarotti@gmail.com, not my Yahoo address. willmarotti@gmail.com. Will Marotti, no dot, no space, no anything. willmarotti@gmail.com. Do that today if you think you might want to be in on the audience, because it's going to be a small, limited audience. As I said, we're going to have 2 shifts. We're going to go. The show's going to be 8 to 10. We're going to have other video guests in. Hopefully, we're going to have a live co-host. Hopefully, we can announce that soon. And then we're going to have a shift. One audience is 8 to 9. The second audience is 9 to 10. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast. We can interact with people. It's going to be fun. We'll have all the results on the big screen here in the studio, and it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, joining us now, the creator of the I think slightly paused Connecticut Capitalist, great longtime journalist, both print and TV, George Colli. George, welcome to the show.
Pastor Will, great to be back.
Look at you with that shirt. It's very.
You know what? Like it's I went one button up, but it looked like it didn't quite look right, so I have to go one button down, I think.
Okay.
I always warm maybe for the flannel today, Pastor.
That's old men always go the button up. That's me. Summer's back. 79 in Connecticut today. Wow.
Unbelievable. Wow. It's I'll take it. It felt good. Felt good walking around the city here. Before we get into news and politics,
please.
I am so excited for your Shaughnessy interview about the 20-year anniversary.
I know, just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, we've had some, over the years, we've interviewed some great folks over the years, but this just came out of nowhere late yesterday afternoon. I'm like, yes.
So that was David Ortiz's home run ball landed less than 10 feet from me.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yep, we were sitting. Really? It was my father, my brother, my girlfriend at the time, my cousin, and we were in the front row in right field behind the Yankee bullpen. Yeah. And the ball landed in the ramp right there, as you come in, we were 4 seats over from the ramp. And there's one shot, and I'm still looking for it again. And I'm wondering with AI if I could actually zero in on it.
Yeah.
But it shows Ortiz's home run from behind, from the announcer's booth.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can see as the crowd reacts in right field. And I swear my father was the first person to jump up in the air. He has this red jacket on and yellow hat. And I remember seeing it at one point. I mean, he jumped up. I mean, instant reaction. But that was the moment for me as a Red Sox fan that gave me peace as a Red Sox fan. After what felt like, I was born in 1979, so it was an abusive relationship for 25 years. That was the moment, and they didn't need to win it the rest of the way for me. I remember walking out. They were down 3-1 still. They had gotten blown out like 19-6 the game before.
Yeah.
And it was, the way they came back, that they actually hit the home run off Rivera, which I don't know at that point if he had ever given up a home run to lose a game. And he never blown, I don't think, a playoff series. And so it was that moment.
It was an iconic win. I mean, it really was.
Buckner, it made it worth it. 88, 92, 96, or the year before that with Boone hitting the home run off Wakefield. Like, that moment is what gave me peace as a Red Sox fan. And so it actually allowed me to now get to a point where I can root for the Yankees in the World Series.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
But that was that 2004 game for me. That was a big.
There's so many. I've been a Red Sox fan since 1967, and I was in third grade. And I had a teacher, Chris Decker, in third grade, who grew up with a guy named Gary Wozlewski, who was pitching for the Red Sox that year. So there were no night games, right? So when the Red Sox game came on, we shut down, rolled the big honking AV stand out with the gigantic black and white TV, and we watched Red Sox. So that was the beginning of it. But of course, they lost the Cardinals in 7 games there. But 1978, I still struggle with the one game, playoff between the Yankees and the Red Sox in 1978, and I was sitting in a Southington restaurant with just barely old enough to have a cigar in my mouth, and I was ready to light my victory cigar when this guy hit a home run, and it was like, Bucky, who?
Oh,
Bucky,
man.
What's and I'll never forget it. It was maybe one of the bitterest moments I can remember as a Red Sox fan. So 2004 was redemption for every Red Sox fan since 1918, and it was fantastic. But who knew?
People remember Ortiz. They don't really remember a lot of the 7 games. I mean, obviously the game after that, Ortiz hit another extra inning or bottom of 9th, RBI to win the game. I think off Rivera again. But they won 7 games in a row after that home run. Sweep. It was pretty uneventful in a lot of ways. They just dominated after that. It was unbelievable. I'll never forget walking out of the stadium that day. I've been at I was at the 2018 the last time, 2017 the last time they won it. Was that 18, that World Series when they clinched it? It was there in 2013 when they clinched it. Yeah. But that moment walking out of that game, the 04 game against playoff game, unlike anything else that I've ever experienced as a sports fan.
Well, and I agree with you that it was so exciting for them to come back and beat the evil empire that it just was like, it didn't matter. You certainly you wanted them to win. And you had hoped that they would beat St. Louis, but I remember St. Louis crushing us in 7 games in the World Series in '67. So I still had open wounds from that loss. And so just the fact that they came back and beat the Yankees, that almost was enough.
But that was enough. That one game, and even that, and then that series, obviously. It was. I thought about it a lot.
Nope. It froze up there. Okay, the internet's working great. Let's hope it doesn't happen with Dan Shaughnessy. We'll get it out of the way now. Can you click him back on or no? Still frozen. All right, George. I don't know if you can hear us, but maybe a little reboot or something, or log back in, sign back on, because there's George. How's that?
Yep, we lost you there. For a second.
Good. Yeah, just locked up for a brief moment.
It's unfinished, but it was the same. It gave me it just that game, walking out of the stadium that day, gave me a piece that I hadn't had as a Red Sox fan. It was a real struggle over the years.
Well, you think back over the years and all of the, of course, bright spot in '67, Carl Yastrzemski won the Triple Crown. But of all the things you think of, like the Kurt Schilling and the bloody sock, I mean, that's still, I mean, that's
You're right.
Red
That was
Sox
what
lore.
That was
and how horrible it was for so long.
Yeah.
To have to carry the guilt and the shame and the embarrassment that Bill Buckner carried. I thought wrongfully, and I know he finally reconciled with the Red Sox, but I
it
felt
wasn't
so
right.
bad. Even when it happened, I wasn't mad at him. I felt horribly. And the other thing that's about that is there was still one more game. They could have won it if they had, but there was still.
I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I actually had a chance to tell the man this, so I can tell this story because I got to know I went to school with his daughter. But I started crying when they brought Bob Stanley in that day in '86. It was even before it was already in my mind over by the time Buckner made the error. Like it was, I'll never forget it. I mean, it was
yeah. Oh, there we go again. Oh boy.
There was no other way to put it. Look at it. I had family members who lived entire lives without seeing it. And I remember when they finally won the World Series, like I watched it alone, like in the dark. Like, I mean, it was, well, it wasn't quite that bad, but I mean, it was, just being so emotional afterwards. Cause I had, uncles and grandfathers and grandparents that were diehard Sox fans. My uncle had been season ticket holder, him and a group of friends since like 1968 or 1969. And that's how we got the seats that we were in the playoffs. Yeah. They kind of have the list. He was like in the top 50 longest, season ticket holders or something at that point. So that's how we got the seats where we got in the front row and right field. But it was so emotional as a kid. Yeah. And baseball was my life. I played in college. I mean, I was at Providence College, like for those Pedro games in the late '90s, early 2000s. Louis Maloney was a Providence guy. We work out with this Johnny McDonald in the off season. So, I mean, we were a little bit tied into the Sox. My roommate got drafted, or was playing for the Red Sox, I think, actually at that point in the minor league. So there was just so much in my life at that point that was invested in that team. And I was completely, I think I remember going to the game in game 4 of 04, completely reserved that they were going to get blown out after the way it was the game before. Yeah. They were down 3-0. It was the Yankees were just better that year. You kind of had to put up with it. And it just turned our entire lives around, Pastor, that one game.
But yeah, I mean, the '70s were brutal time to be a Red Sox fan. Even though, you made it in '75, but still, and the best you could, and it was so good because back then you had so many personalities. And I think of we just lost the great El Tiante, Louis Tiant. Yep. He was such a personality. He was so bigger than life. The spaceman, Bill Lee, there's some really amazing players that, I remember going to a game with my best friend, and we were sitting over the Red Sox bullpen. And they would fire up a little barbecue and have chicken and stuff, and they'd have arguments between Tiana. I mean, that was what you enjoyed back then as a Red Sox fan, because you had no hope of them winning.
Yeah, they weren't going to win
anything, so you had to enjoy what you could enjoy. But it was quite a time. So yeah, this is going to be a highlight. I remember. I think it was 2013. I had a chance. We would cover Red Sox games. Yeah, obviously TIC is the Red Sox flagship here in Connecticut, and once a year we'd go out to Fenway and we'd do some stuff. And so I got a chance to interview Joe Castiglione in the press box.
How cool was that? Legend.
With my daughter, and that was a highlight. This will be a sports highlight for me, having a chance to host Dan Shaughnessy. So it'll be great.
I read yesterday. I don't know if you put it on or who it was. But it was Shaughnessy interviewing Millar. Who was it? Millar, I think. Kevin Millar.
Kevin Millar, yeah.
And Millar telling him, basically saying at that point, like, I got to get the exact quote, but I mean, it was from the 04 season.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe it would have been Millar. Maybe it would have been 2007. Maybe it was the older.
Maybe Johnny Damon, 2004.
It was this would have been because Millar would have been the 20 the Cowboy Up. That was what, 2011?
Yeah. Right.
All right. So
Right.
that may have been what he was talking about.
Well, Damon, matter of fact, I'll probably bring this up with Dan. Damon in 2004 described the team just as a bunch of cowboys doing the best they could. Right.
So maybe that was
where that started, and that was
different,
Johnny Damon. But again, it's just been hard. I mean, this year, right? I mean, to not even make the playoffs this year. I'm personally done with Alex Cora. I can't believe they extended. I think he's done. I've always been well, I shouldn't say always, but Tito's been my favorite Red Sox manager, forever. I think Francona was the best we ever had.
He knew how to manage those personalities,
and he did well at Cleveland. I didn't do as well, but I mean, he did well at Cleveland. And I always kind of rooted for whenever the Red Sox were playing Cleveland. I always rooted for Cleveland because of Francona.
Yeah.
But I'm done with Cora, and I wish we could turn the page. To quote Kamala, I wish we could turn the page and get somebody else in there. I think it's hard to say. I think Wakefield would have done a great job. I think Euclid should get a shot. I think Euclid should get a chance to lead the team. But we'll see.
Veritek?
Tech could be great. Yeah. Tech and Euclid. I mean, it'd be great. Awesome. Hey, I remember last week we had a conversation about a woman you spoke to there in the city, a Jewish woman, Democrat woman. And there's a huge article this morning out of the AP. And the same kind of a thing talking about this woman, Rona Kaufman, lifelong Democrat, Jewish American, and really thinking about voting for Trump this time because of the lack of support that at least she sees, lack of support for Israel by the Biden-Harris administration and the rise of anti-Semitism. But she feels weird about it. She feels that this, she says, this is my family and the old generation. I don't think we've ever voted Republican, ever.
Yeah. It sounds like exactly the woman that I had talked to. Same
she said my sister put a Trump sign outside her house. That's a huge for them. That's a huge shift, right? That they never would do. The whole family never voted Republican. Do you think there's going to be more people like this?
Yes.
In 2 weeks, George?
Yes, and I think it's this is where I think they missed the boat in Connecticut in 2022, where they could have picked up a silent majority of people that weren't happy with the way that the COVID policies went, and instead they decided to run around and say how great Ned Lamont did. It's the same thing. I mean, this is a change election. In Connecticut, they're missing the boat. I mean, 2 million of 3.5 million state residents, voters and non-voters alike, don't have a legislative candidate race that's uncontested. They don't have anybody new to vote for. Ben Proto put out a video yesterday that's the most embarrassing, cringing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I think he's trying to reach out to younger kids. It's awful. It's just the worst, most embarrassing, stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Ben who?
This is how they're actually focusing and spending time in the last 2 weeks. They're just so out of touch with their people. And this is, you can really tell who watches MSNBC in the morning and who doesn't. I mean, and it's and there's fewer and fewer people watching it because people are waking up. And Donald Trump, that was one of the most brilliant retail politics I've ever seen at McDonald's the other day. I mean, show me the pictures of Hitler working at a McDonald's. I mean, it's an absolute. It goes against everything that the Democrats have spent 8 years of the sky is falling, crying, just everything they say about Trump is blown up in their face. Because now that people are actually looking at it again, they're seeing it with open and clear eyes, and they're realizing this guy is not what they've said he was. If they were able to think through it, they'll realize that the things that got them to hate Trump probably weren't true to begin with. I mean, it's 30 sources said this. You know what? I mean, who were the 30 sources? I mean, was it the same 30 who told you that the Biden laptop wasn't real and so on and so forth? So
it's all been propaganda, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see in 2 weeks, and hopefully it'll be a good result for the American people. Hey, we are out of time, George. Thank you so much. Stay tuned
for the rest of this show
for the Dan Shaughnessy interview. All right, thank you, guys. We're going to take a quick break, like 3 minutes, a 3-minute break, and then we'll come back and hopefully we won't have any technical problem with Dan Shaughnessy from the Boston Globe and talk about this unbelievable 2004 baseball season where the Red Sox broke the curse and and brought redemption for every Red Sox fan in Red Sox Nation. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Will Marotti Show. You know, I talked about this last week. There was the 2004. You know, if you've been listening long enough, you know I've been a lifelong Red Sox fan. Became a fan when I was a kid in 1967, and it's been hard. It's hard to be a Red Sox fan because the highs are highs, the lows are low, and a lot of times there's a lot of distance in between the highs, and certainly was the case. But 2004 was the year of redemption for every Red Sox fan. And little did we know what it would lead to, more world championships. But a big anniversary year. I was so happy to get this email late yesterday afternoon, and the opportunity to have one of the great voices, one of the great writers in Boston sports history, and particularly one of the great aficionados for the Boston Red Sox, Boston Globe writer Dan Shaughnessy. So, Dan, welcome to the show. What a surprise and an honor this is. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, nice to be here. I appreciate it. Let's talk about the Red Sox.
Well, as I just said, I mean, my whole life since a little kid, I've been a Red Sox fan, and it's hard. It's hard when you go back to '67. You go back to getting by the Cardinals of all people. I remember '78. What a horrible year. I was just old enough to smoke, and I had my victory cigar almost lit, and I was sitting in a restaurant in Southern Connecticut, and Bucky who? I mean, it's just like the world exploded. And you know, the wrong guilt and shame that poor Bill Buckner had to carry around for years. I mean, it was just a calamity of errors 2004 really was different. I mean, what's your exciting recollection? I mean, other than they won a championship, but just 2004 was a very special year. What's your best recollection of 2004?
Yeah, there was a lot going on then. I mean, the build up to it. I had written The Curse of the Bambino in 1989 or 90, a long time ago, and that was still in print with new additions to it, all the things that had happened subsequently. And of course, in 03, the Aaron Boone game when they were, minutes away from clinching the American League pennant on the Yankee soil. And that went away. Grady Little stayed too long with Pedro. And there was a lot of back and forth with the two franchises, Larry Lucchino calling the Yankees the evil empire and the Yankees kind of rubbing it in our faces after all these decades. And Alex Rodriguez was actually traded to the Red Sox, and then that was rescinded by MLB. And then when he was traded to the Yankees, you bring in with him. And, it fast forward this arms race, the two teams just stocking up to play one another. And after all that had happened, you come to 04, and then they meet again in the ALCS, and the Yankees are up 3-0, and they kill the Red Sox 19-8 in Game 3. So this is a disgrace. I mean, it's going to be really bad here. And that Boston team was stacked with a lot of talent, a lot of character, a lot of characters, and they didn't give up, and they did something that no team's done in 150 years of postseason baseball, which is win 4 straight when you're down 3-0, and down 3-0 after a humiliating, Game 3, the 19-8 game. So that's the memory. I was working on a book at the time, like pretty much everybody was, and but that Sunday, I remember I had a teenage son, a big baseball player fan, and he gave up his ticket to Game 4. He didn't even want to see the Yankees win at Fenway Park and continue this this beating that we were taking at this end. So it all started with the Game 4, and David Ortiz sort of emerged as this mythical figure, this hero, and he wins with a walk-off home run and in Game 4, and then they come back basically the same day because it was after midnight, Game 4, and Monday afternoon we were back at Fenway, and Ortiz won it again with a 14-inning game. These games went on forever, and there were hours and hours and innings, and then go to New York, and they beat them 2 more times, and then they were a wagon. They won their last 8 straight games. They won the World Series, first time in 86 years, and so it's all bundled into this one big memory, but it was the greatest sports event. I've been doing this a long time, and it was by far the greatest sports event we've had.
How long? Since 89 you've been with the Globe?
I've been, it's embarrassing. I mean, full time since 81. My first story was over 50 years ago. I was as a collegian, I was writing from Holy Cross, covering Holy Cross stuff. So my first byline was 51 years ago. How bad is that?
Wow. Amazing. It's been a rough time for the Red Sox fans recently. I mean, we lost Wakefield a few years ago, and then his wife, and more recently El Tiante. Talking about a great personality. I don't know how you could have a better, more charismatic figure and a good ball player than Louis Tiant, but he's gone. And then, Joe Castiglione announced his retirement on the radio side. It's been, and then we get smushed. We're out of the playoffs, not even a shot at it. What's the talk around Boston, Dan, about Alex Cora? Because I feel like I'm done, but apparently the Red Sox management didn't take my opinion. What's the feeling about?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I kind of go the other way on that. I think he got a lot out of what they had this year. They don't have enough talent. This is coming from the top. They've stopped spending on premier talent, which they used to do. They're into draft and development. They're into pairing payroll and becoming a middle market team when they are in a big market and they charge big market prices. So the manager's not the problem, in my view. They're lucky that he stayed on. Had he played out his contract and not re-signed during July, he'd be very coveted right now by a lot of teams. So he was in a good position there. In my view, he's not the problem. The problem is that the pivot that ownership made in 2019, which was to stop competing with the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Mets, and going out there and trying to supplement your farm system with ready-made big league talent. And that takes money and it takes trading prospects, and they've stopped doing that.
Do you think they take for granted that they just feel like they're always going to have close to sellout crowds, and those? I mean, the Red Sox was such a cash cow, but I mean, it wasn't. They were not too long ago. You said 19. I mean, always seems like Red Sox were either top 2 or 3 in payroll. Now they're like 7th or 8th. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh no, it's 11 or lower. I mean, it's been steadily going down the last 5 years, and they do know that Fenway is the jewels. Fenway is the star. They don't have star players; they have a star ballpark, and tourists want to go there. It's part of the Freedom Trail, and out of town people want to see it, and invariably the ballpark gets taken over by Mets fans or Phillies fans or whoever happens to be in town that night.
Sure.
They want to be there, and it's a spectacular. And this ownership did a great job rebuilding it and making it a great, historic 112 years old, all this stuff. So there is a fallback on that, and a lot of tickets are sold prior to the season. If the team's bad, they still can have a lot of folks in there, and the students love going there. And so you're always going to have, I think, a pretty close to capacity crowd in there because the ballpark is the star. But the product has not been what it was, and that should be of some concern.
I mean, I remember being a Red Sox fan as a kid in the 70s and going to Fenway and not even close to being full. I mean, sometimes it was ghost town. And do they not think that that's possible to revert to that? I mean, I think people at the end of the day want winners.
Well, I agree with that, but there's a cushion to the notion that it's a tourist attraction, and that people they're selling the Fenway experience now. You go, you sing Sweet Caroline in the 8th inning, and you love being in the ballpark, even though it's small and cramped and there's no parking and the bathrooms are a little skanky and all that kind of thing. So, but it's an attraction. But I think there's a limit on that, and at some point you need to have the winning product as well, and that's kind of what it's about as they pivot toward 2025.
You're right about the ballpark. I tell people all the time, because there's two passions I have some would say it's not a sport, but I love motorsports, in particular IndyCar racing, and I love Red Sox baseball. And I say there's two places that when I go there, they transport me in time back to my childhood.
Sure.
And one is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but the other is Fenway Park. I'm instantly in a good mood the moment I walk in the gate, and I'm that way at Indianapolis. It doesn't matter what's going on, what the problems are, what the stress is, what the pressure, the failures, disappointment. I just go back to my childhood, young years, and it's just wonderful. And I guess probably that has that effect for a lot of people going to Fenway Park.
I think that's true. There's currency in that, and they know that. And I feel the same way. I believe in sacred spaces, and that's one. And I'll be very sad if it goes away in my lifetime. But it looks like it's here to stay. I mean, 112 years, they put all this money into it, and it's still the star attraction for the ball club. So I think it'll be around long after us.
There's no bad seats at Fenway, which is nice. Just wherever you go, it's and we've been everywhere. We've been front row at first base, and we've been out, and behind the pesky pole and the bleachers. I mean, we've been everywhere over the years, and it just it almost doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter because it is such a fun thing. And of course, you want them to win, but it's just it doesn't always happen. That 2004 team, I mean, there were such characters on there. I think about the pitching staff with Pedro, and one of my favorites, Bronson Arroyo, and Manny, and Kevin Millar, and Ellis Burks, and of course Big Papi. I mean, it's almost some things you just can't repeat. They're moments in time. I feel like that's a team, and it had such great chemistry, and they were such characters. I don't know if that'll ever be repeated in Red Sox history.
Well, probably not. We're 20 years out now. Things change, and there's not as much color in the game in general. And again, you had you had Hall of Fame caliber players there. I mean, Pedro Martinez, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez. I mean, these guys are like legends in the game, and they were stand-up guys who performed in the clutch and had great colorfulness and character that fans wanted to go see. Johnny Damon with the long hair, Kevin Millar with all the stupid comments all the time. I mean, it was a fun bunch, and they performed when it mattered, and they created this legacy, which we're still talking about 20 years later.
Yeah. I mean, things change, as you say, come and go. Fans got so used to hearing, at least on the radio. I mean, I broadcast on a radio show station for years. It's been the flagship of Red Sox baseball, and everybody got so used to hearing, certain people. Joe Castiglione, probably top of the list. What's the feeling around Beantown with Joe hanging up the mic? He says he's going to be back and he's going to be around. I'm sure he will be, but it won't be the same. It won't be the same. What's been the feeling out there?
Well, there's been attrition in that area. Mike Gorman stopped with the Celtics. He was like 40 plus years. Mm-hmm. Jack Edwards stepped down at Nesson for the Bruins coverage, and of course Joe Castiglione goes back to like 1983, I think. He's in the Hall of Fame. He went out on his own terms, and Joe's in his mid-70s, and that's a tough beat. I mean, you're traveling, it's 162 games. You're doing the whole game every night. It's a long day, a lot of travel, a lot of time away from your family, and Joe did it for a long, long time. And it's great to see a guy, go out on his own terms. Very rare in the business, as we both know. So we're happy for him, and like you say, he'll be around. He's not going away altogether. You'll see Joe.
I don't know. I think one of the things that I love about Joe, his mom was down in Hampton, Connecticut, and so we talked frequently about that. I had a chance to interview Joe going back a few years because the radio station would do games from Fenway Park, obviously, and I had a chance to interview Joe up in the press box with my daughter, and it was one of the highlights of my career. And just the easiest guy ever to talk to. He was just a wonderful, like a fan almost. It was like,
Oh, totally.
two fans, somebody baseball. It was wonderful. What I of all the things I think about during the Red Sox run from 2004 to 18, but I think the Kurt Schilling. It's like mythological, the Kurt Schilling bloody sock. Remember, I mean, what are your recollections of that, and where do you think that places in terms of Red Sox lore?
Well, that's an important development. I mean, he was brought in just that year. They traded for him after the collapse in 03. They acquired Keith Folk, the best closer in the game. Schill was available through trade. They went out to, Theo went to Thanksgiving dinner at Schill's house in Arizona. They really recruited him. They gave up prospects for him. They signed him to a longer-term contract. He came in and delivered exactly what he said he was going to do. He's a 20-game winner, strike machine, a big game pitcher. And they were counting on him for the big games. And then lo and behold, in the first game of the ALCS, his tendon snapped over his ankle there. And that was it. He was going to be done for the year. It was a very crushing blow to the entire operation there. And then they lose a couple more games. They're down 3-0. And there was some chatter that they might try this experimental surgery. And Dr. Bill Morgan, who's at St. Elizabeth's, very near where I'm sitting right now, and he'd done some experimental surgery on cadaver legs. And so someone actually gave their life to have Kurt Schilling on the mound that day because Dr. Morgan operated on the cadaver and had this experimental fix with a tendon over the ankle. And it was going to be a temporary situation just to get him back out there. And that's what the bleeding was. That was legit, bleeding through the bandage and then through the sanitary sock. And you see it bleeding red on the mound as he goes to New York. And he held them to one run, gave him he won the game in New York. That was game 6. Which was required to you got to win 4, and that was the third win for them, and pushed it to a 7th game. And then of course he came back and did it again in the World Series and won that one as well. So he pitched very well under amazing conditions, and that's the kind of big game warrior that he was.
Yeah. Another amazing character during that time, and with mixed reactions. I think I love him tremendously, is Manny Ramirez. Where does Manny fit in the log of Red Sox heroes? I mean, he was MVP of that World Series, and he never let up. He was a relentless hitter. People forget he hit the home run to win the first game of the playoffs, the first round of the playoffs against the Angels. And Manny, he never really had slumps. He never wavered. He was just he was a slugger on the par with Jimmy Fox, right-handed slugger, and gave them 7.5 great years. They traded Dan Duquette traded for him. And the turn of the century, and it was a big contract then, and he made good on 7.5 years of an 8-year contract. Very unusual. Wasn't great at the end when he parted, and he got popped for PEDs a couple times, and that's Manny being Manny, I suppose. So that cost him the Hall of Fame. But the service that he gave in the 7.5 years here, very few would trade that back because he delivered in a big way. I mean, who other than Manning would get lost in left field and then come walking out of the Green Monster? I mean, it was just like
a lot of goofy stuff with Manny over the years. He was fun to have around.
And Big Papi. I mean, I don't know that you could maybe the best clutch hitter ever in Red Sox baseball. I mean, got to a point where certain games you almost expected, and then he would deliver and hit a home run.
Yeah, legend of David, that was born in the 04 playoffs, as we talked about earlier, winning game 4, winning game 5. That carried on to the point in 2013, when they won the 3rd of the 4 World Series in this century, he hit 688 in the World Series against the Cardinals. I mean, he was on fire. Never seen anything like it. It was unbelievable in every way.
Any any players like there's you always argue about trades and you feel bad about things, but I feel like in the modern era, I think 2004 is back in history, but when I think Mookie Betts was one of the hardest trades for Red Sox fans to wrap their heads around and to digest, and then to see he go on and play so well for the Dodgers. Um, Again, do you think you're of the opinion that the ballpark is enough to keep the faithful coming, even in the spite of these ridiculous? Nomar was another trade that I think I didn't particularly feel either way about Nomar Gasper, but I think that was a trade that a lot of fans were bothered by.
Well, there's sort of different categories there. Nomar
Yeah.
gave great service here for a long, long time, and he hit 370 in the big leagues as a right-handed hitter, almost impossible to do. His career was trending in the wrong way. He had injuries. He wasn't a happy guy in '04. The deal needed to be made. Defensively, he was subpar. And Theo Epstein took a lot of nerve to make that deal. He traded him at the deadline in '04. And it took a couple of weeks, but the thing kicked in a big way. And defensively, that was part of it, was getting Nomar out of the position and sort of extracting his negativism from the clubhouse. Those things worked for that team. So that was a deal that it was bold, and Nomar was wildly popular in the early part of the century when he was killing it. He wasn't at the end, and they traded him before it got really bad. So that was a smart trade. The Mookie thing is just that's Babe Ruth time, 100 years later. It just makes no sense at all. Yeah. That is the big market team failing to compete in the big market for their own player. And a guy who was MVP of the American League, who won a World Series in '18. He's been in the playoffs every year since they traded him. He's got a chance to win a second World Series since leaving Boston this year. He's top 5 MVP every year in the National League, plays multiple positions. African-American born player, developed and drafted by your organization, wins with you. And they tried to push off the notion that he wasn't going to stay here anyway. That's bogus in my view. You can't prove that until you match what he's getting from other teams, and they didn't do it. They wouldn't do it. So don't tell me he was leaving anyway. Match what he's making, what he's being offered by other teams. Compete in the market for your best player. That's your job when you own the Boston Red Sox. They didn't do their job. They traded him pennies on the dollar, and they haven't been the same since.
I mean, do you think that was the big beginning of ownership in terms of mentality shift? We're going to start shedding down payroll, and we're just not going to care about it anymore. I mean, is that really when that happened, do you think?
It was a sign that they're not behaving like they did when they won the 4 World Series, and they have not since then. They've pivoted, like I said, with the operation, behaving like a middle market team instead of the big market team, which they are. And this year, the big market teams, most of them were in the final 8, final 4, whatever, Mets, Phillies, this World Series, Dodgers, Yankees. They should be in that realm because they have the means to do it.
You think they'll ever sell?
No. Why would you sell it? You're making money every year. It's a great asset. It's a great asset. You live here. FSG, they're about acquiring, not selling assets. And those are John Henry's own words. You don't sell an asset. They're a big asset for them.
So I saw Alex Cora's last press conference for the year, and very optimistic, as you would think. What do you think next year bodes for the Red Sox?
Well, I mean, they're trending in a better direction, I think, because the everyday players that they've brought up have been pretty good, and their lineup, it's imbalanced. Too many left-handed hitters, not enough pitching, the usual stuff with the Red Sox. But if they go out and spend some money to acquire some pitching or trade some prospects for pitching, they have a chance to be in the mix next year. You almost have to be in the mix now. There's everybody makes the playoffs. I mean, 16 teams make the playoffs. So
I'd be out if you
12 teams. But it's you should be able, with the means they have, they should be able to make the playoffs. They've only made it once since 2018. So they need to get back in the game and be the Red Sox that they were in the early part of the century.
We're talking with the legendary Dan Shaughnessy from the press release that I got, talking about a series. Now this was the first I heard about it, but what's the series that's put together?
Well, the Globe did it's like if you go on the Boston Globe website, it'll all pop up there. It's I guess it's a podcast, so it's not video. This is strictly audio, but it's there, and it's regarding the '04 Red Sox, and a lot of voices. They went back and did a nice job, getting hold of Terry Francona and Kevin Millar and a lot of the characters from 2004.
Yeah.
And I think you'd really enjoy it. It's several parts, and
Yeah,
I
it
think
says
it's 3 or more parts. I've listened to 3. I think that's the entirety of it. But yeah, you'll be really entertained. Check that out.
Good. And of course, we start out as video, but we turn into podcast with Apple and Spotify. So what's the future for Dan Shaughnessy?
Future is going to the World Series on Thursday. It covers games 1, 2, 3, and 4 in New York, LA and New York, and then go to Nashville with the Patriots a week from Saturday. The game will be a week from Sunday. And tonight's future is the Boston Celtics opening and raising the banner number 19. So banner number 18. Looking forward to banner number 19. So yeah, it's a lot going on here. This is an overlap time of year. Everybody's playing. I was at the Bruins home opener last week, and we got all 4 teams in and out of competition right now.
Wow. Last question. Any thoughts? Any confirmation about rumor talk of Belichick going to the Raiders?
Boy, I want him to go somewhere. He's like 14 wins away from catching Shula. He's on every media platform there is now, but I'd rather see him on the sideline, see him pick up that torch and try to get past Shula. As time goes on, it gets harder and harder to see that happening. So he's going to get
Brady has some influence over there. Brady seems to be wanting
Brady
to play
should have
football.
influence. Yeah. Exactly correct. Let's hope that happens.
All right. Hey, Dan, I can't tell you what a pleasure this is. Such an honor. Thank you so much for taking time for us. And this will be out on all the platforms and podcasts later. So thank you, and have a great rest of the sports season. And we look forward to reading and watching what you have to say. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you. Take care.
Dan Shaughnessy, everybody, Boston Globe. All right. Hey, we are out of time. We are done. Great show today. Thanks to George Colli coming on earlier. Tomorrow we should have Reese on the radio. No, wait. Special announcement. We're going to pause tomorrow. We're not going to have a show tomorrow. We'll be back Thursday and then Friday. And we're getting ready for the election night show. So you gotta, if you want to be on an audience, I gotta hear from you. Marotti at gmail.com. Love to have you here. It's going to be fun. You get to see AT in real life and be part of the audience. And we'll have somebody hold up an applause sign. And, it'll be fun. All the results coming in on the big screen here in the studio. And we'd love to, that was Trump calling me. So anyway, hey, God bless you. Enjoy your day. We'll see you Thursday morning at 9:00.